an award-winning illustrator. His characters have just been featured in the beautiful Puffin Book festive advert, so you might have seen that on TV. He's co-creator of the lovely picture books Look Up and Clean Up. And so I'm just going to welcome him to the scene, Mr. Dapo Adeola. Welcome to the scene, Dapo.
Hey, Jacqueline, thank you so much for having me on.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm a big fan, so I'm so excited that you're on the show tonight.
I'm honoured, man. I'm absolutely honoured. Thank you.
Well, listen, not everybody's going to know about your beautiful work, the illustrations that you do. You're a co-creator of some children's books as well. So before we get into conversation, perhaps you can just let people know about the success and the couple of books which I mentioned there, Clean Up and Look Up, and your co-creator as well.
Right, so where to start? So my name is Dapo Adeola. I am a children's book illustrator by nature. The books that people would most know me for is the Look Up series, which is co-created and written by the very, very talented Nathan Brian, who is my partner in crime. You might know the book from its recent success at winning the Waterstones Children's Prize for Best Picture Book, and also the overall prize as well. That's what we do. I've got a few other books in the pipeline. I am about 2 years now in this industry, and it's been a very, very interesting ride so far.
2 years, and already, your illustrations are at the end of this festive advert, which I just mentioned, the Puffin Books festive advert. That's a really big deal. So, what a journey it's been over the last couple of years. How were you when you saw that advert? Because I was so excited for you.
So what was a bit bananas about it is we were sent the storyboard to kind of look over and approve about a couple of months ago. And it's one of those things where so many things happen in the industry so quickly sometimes that you forget what you'd seen and approved. So when it came out that morning, it was a massive surprise to me. And I just logged online, watched it, thinking, oh, this is nice. This is really nice. And then when it got to the end bit, I nearly fell off my chair. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So it was absolutely mind blowing. I think for both of us, to be honest, we were both very, very delighted with how it came out.
Yeah, well, it's a beautiful thing. So people, Dapo's Twitter handle and everything else is @DapsDraws, and I definitely recommend that you have a look and you see some of the illustrations that we're talking about, because they are beautiful. I've bought both of those books actually for my nieces. Wow. Yeah, they've got both of them. But can you describe your pictures, your illustrations, and why you think they've captured so many hearts?
Wow. I think in particular, Rocket, the character, because our picture book series is a character-driven picture book. And I think what people connect with, and we had this when we were going around pitching the book in the initial stages, before we actually even had the text sorted and actually had a book out, what people connect with the most is this girl's energy. Like, Nathan gave me a really tight brief, and I did my best to infuse her with as much positive energy, curiosity, and just drive as I possibly can. And it really connects. And there are some scenes in the book as well, because it is a Black character, but it's not a Black narrative, if that makes any sense. So the trick to getting it right in terms of how we represented the character on paper was to make sure that there were things in the illustrations that weren't necessarily in the text that paid homage to her background as a Black character, but didn't dominate the story. And that, I think, was that sweet spot that we managed to achieve. And everybody resonated with it. People speak about things that we don't mention in the text, in the image that they connect with. So, yeah.
And you mentioned representation there, and I just think it's great that, on World Book Day, for example, some of the kids are going to have another character, and Black children will have another character which they can actually dress up as and feel like, I look like that character and I can go to school as Rocket, or, if they want to dress up as Jamal, the older brother, for example. But it's a really cute thing.
We actually had our first World Book Day this March gone, just before everything went haywire. And it was overwhelming. That's how amazing it was. We had something in the realm of about 200 odd pictures sent to us of young girls dressed up as Rocket. And we even had, as you just mentioned, a Jamal in there as well. So it was absolutely amazing. Like, I was just expecting to get maybe 1 or 2, 5 at the most, just a few of my friends forcing their kids to dress up as the character. Yeah. But it was all done willingly, and it was just absolutely overwhelming. It was amazing. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So let's just talk a little bit about representation then, because, the books are beautiful and they are really multicultural. But in terms of that representation and the importance of that, is that a driving force for you as well, or is it all just about, it's about the story and they just happen to be representative books?
So I'd be absolutely lying if I said that it hadn't become something that was significant. Initially, it was about the story, and it still is in a lot of ways. It's about the story and the craft of illustration and about getting it right. But then at the same time, I think that you can do two things at once, if that makes any sense. So there is a part of me that's like really, properly geared towards telling stories that offer a wider variety of representation in terms of the characters on screen and stories being told about them and the narratives that, Black children especially are allowed to occupy within pages. So that's definitely a significantly important thing that I'm trying to do as well with my work.
Love it. Okay, so representation, not just in terms of ensuring that young children are seeing images of themselves in the pages, but also part of your MO now is about getting recognition for illustrators. Because I'll be honest with you, when I think about the books I read when I was growing up, it's only really the Roald Dahl books where I can think, illustrated by Quentin Blake, and that's the only time I ever know who the illustrator of a book was. But in reading your books and in getting your books, the illustrations are such a huge integral part of children's books and the way in which children feel about themselves. So it seems a travesty that the illustrators are not more known. Anyway, this has become part of your MO, right? Something that you're passionate about.
Very, very, very much so. I mean, coming into the industry, I'm self-taught, so I didn't come through the normal channels. So prior to this, I've been illustrating for about 8 years, trying to teach myself the craft and the business side of it. So I was very much my own cheerleader. So there was a certain amount of confidence that I had, right? So now I'm in the industry, I just carry on as normal, right? And, it's much to... I'm very good at tooting my own horn when it comes to the work that I do and putting out there, obviously within reason. I don't go overboard. But when I'm in the industry and I'm doing work and I'm slaving over a book and, it gets shown and I don't get credited for the work that I've done, even though the work that I did is actually what's being used as content, that is just unacceptable. And I've since found that that's actually something that's quite normalized in the industry, and it's shocking. And what the industry has done a really good job of doing is normalizing this treatment of illustrators and the lack of crediting with their work. So good a job that the public don't know that it's a problem, if it makes any sense. So a lot of people, like you said, are unaware of the names of illustrators, even though they are constantly enjoying the people's artwork, their craft. They're unaware of it. So what's happened now is there is a shift in the industry, thanks to an author illustrator called Sarah McIntyre. She's got this thing called Pictures Mean Business, which is like a campaign that she's running to give illustrators the proper credit for their work, right? So thanks to that, the industry started to shift. But what I've noticed now is that the industry has done such a good job of entrenching this mentality within the public that even though the industry's shift, the wider media hasn't shifted, right? There's still a thing where there's a hierarchy, an unspoken almost hierarchy with illustrators and authors, where illustrators are placed below authors, even though the work, especially when it comes to picture books, the contribution of an illustrator is massive by comparison to the contribution of an author.
It really is. And just to say, when you go into a bookstore and you are looking for a present, say for your niece or nephew or whoever, it's likely to be the picture which is you're going to be gravitating towards, particularly if it's for children's books, right?
Especially if it's for picture books, even book covers, like even novels, like the first thing you see is the visual on the cover. Yet when we have book reveals online or anywhere, it's rare that you get the illustrator of the picture that we're all looking at being mentioned. A book, essentially, it's its jacket until you open it. So it's massively important that jacket does a good job of grabbing your attention for you to pick it up. And in order for it to do that, the illustrator has to be, of a certain caliber. So it's a shame when we don't mention these people. And the thing is, it's not just about not mentioning them per se, it's also the after effects of not mentioning them. How is somebody supposed to find who this person is that did this artwork to commission them, if they want to commission them, if you don't mention them? And it goes even deeper than that. We have a lack of credit being put on sales data, for example, when it comes to illustrators. So you could be a best-selling illustrator and nobody would know because your name isn't credited on the sales data, and it's appalling.
Wow.
It's absolutely appalling. So, these are things that I've learned, and again, coming from the background of somebody who's self-driven and does his own thing, and I don't have to wait for anybody to credit me. it's kind of been a real shock to my system to come into the industry and find it this way. And now I'm in this situation where I'm mentoring people as well, and I have to advocate for the industry. And I'm kind of doubtful about whether or not I should advocate for the industry.
Mm-hmm.
So what I've done is just, being vocal about it and try to sort of initiate change and raise awareness about the problem so I can still continue to advocate for the industry, because the industry is a lovely place to work in as an illustrator. But it's just these things that need to be changed for it to be a fair playing field for everybody.
Yeah, and you wrote an open letter, right, to try and improve and raise awareness about this issue.
I did. And, I got to show so much love to all the authors and all the illustrators that jumped on the letter and signed. We're at 750 plus signatures at the moment.
And
the
big
letter
names,
is massive names. Shout out to Mallory Blackman, Patrice Lawrence, Benji Davis, quite a few massive names, Shauna Jackson, so many amazing talents just stepped up and they recognized the issue and the situation, and they were very vocal about it. And my publisher Puffin has been massively supportive as well in all my endeavors off the page, including this one. And we're hoping that it does resonate, people do hear. And what it did make me aware of again was the fact that the problem is so much bigger than just the wider media. It's actually the general public that don't understand this thing. So now it's just about thinking about ways to communicate this, to sort of raise the awareness, because again, we're talking about the next generation of illustrators coming up. We want them to feel like this is a place that they can be happy working in, especially, not being funny, especially illustrators of color, especially because there aren't that many of us in this industry. So, yeah.
The expression, which I think has really done you a disservice, isn't it? Don't judge a book by its cover. You're like, in this instance, you actually really want people to judge a book by its cover.
And people very often do. That's where the expression came from, So if you're liking a book and you're finding yourself gravitating towards the image, take a second, stop, ask yourself, who drew this? Like, who's the artist behind this? You might find something that you didn't hope for when you do that,
So I've just had a text, by the way. Are you familiar with Josh Kirby? Sarah is asking.
Josh Kirby. I know a Jack Kirby.
Okay, well, it's another illustrator's name that we've just put out there. So there we go. Another illustrator. Well, listen, in terms of what your end result is, we want illustrators to be recognised. We want to ensure that, particularly if it's co-creations, but even if it isn't a co-created book like yours and Nathan's Look Up and Clean Up, but we want to ensure that you want to ensure that people are familiar and illustrators are getting their dues. So what can the public do to ensure that they're playing their part in that bigger picture?
Honestly, it's as simple a thing as if you like a book, like if you like a picture book, if you like a book cover, take the time out and figure out, find out who did that. Take an interest, an active interest in who did that, especially if it's a picture book, especially when you're reading it to your children as well. There is something that a friend of mine pointed out, which she does, which is she introduces the author and the illustrator when she's reading a picture book to her child. And it's such a simple thing, but you'd be amazed at how that resonates with the child going forward. You're learning to appreciate the person who contributed to this thing that you're enjoying. It's such a simple thing.
Yeah, and I guess actually you're putting it on their radar as well, that illustrators exist, and that's perhaps something that they can do.
That they can do, this is it. You're connecting all those wonderful dots. It's really that simple. These are things that people don't think about when it comes to how we're feeding, the way this child sees the world. Yeah. And again, I keep saying this and I'm saying again, it is even more vital that we as Black people, when we read books to our children, we make them aware of these things as careers from an early age.
Amazing. Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, I could talk to you all night. I know that we could, and time has flown by. Just want to read a message which is coming on Twitter. John Byrne, is very excited about the fact that you're on the show this evening. So, he says that you're officially smashing it. So really happy that you're on the show. So nice shout out to you there. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on the scene this evening. So if people do want to find out and have a look at your work, where can they find you?
The best place to catch me is on Twitter or Instagram, and it's at Dapstraws. That's DAPSDRAWS. I'm a very active poster on both of those platforms, and I keep people up to speed with whatever's going on those two platforms primarily.
brilliant. Listen, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me this evening.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank you
good
so
one.
much. Enjoy the rest of the show. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
So the brilliant Dap Straws. And yeah, do make sure that you check out his work because it is just fabulous.